Welcome back to the podcast. Today we're going to be diving into one of the most heavily debated topics in the fitness world, the physique transformation world. Can you build muscle and burn fat at the same time, or known as body recomposition? Is a topic often surrounded by a ton of confusion, definitely lots of conflicting opinions, and most definitely some level of misinformation. Some people say it's completely impossible. Others claim it's like quite literally the best approach for long-term physique development. So, which one is it? Well, the answer is definitely not black and white. It's going to depend on your training experience, your diet experience, what your current physique looks like, your experience in the gym overall, and overall approach. So, in today's episode, we're going to be covering first what is recomping, when recomping works best, and how to structure your nutrition and training for maximum muscle gain and fat loss at the same time, and why beginners often recomp successfully. And then lastly, we'll cover when bulking and cutting becomes the better strategy for your overall progress. So whether you're a beginner looking to maximize your results, or someone who's been training for, let's say, a couple years trying to figure out what your next move should be, what phase you should enter next, or you're someone more advanced wondering if recomping is even worth your time, this episode will give you the answers to all those questions. Starting with first, what exactly is recomping? So a body recomposition is changing your body composition by gaining muscle while simultaneously losing fat without a significant change in your total body weight. So unlike traditional bulking or growth phases or cutting fat loss phases where you focus on one goal at a time, recomping aims to achieve both at the same time. However, we all know muscle gain and fat loss happen at different rates. You can lose fat very, very quickly compared to building muscle, which is a very slow process in itself, especially for trained individuals. And because of this, recomping isn't always the most efficient strategy for long-term progress, especially if you want to make the best progress and push your physique forwards faster. Recomping isn't always it. So with that said, there are a few specific conditions where recomping definitely works extremely well and has a use case that is very valuable. So particularly, this is going to look like when the body is highly responsive to training and dietary changes. So if you fall into any of the following categories I'm about to go through, you are more likely to see great success with recomping. First, you're a complete beginner. If you're new to training or returning after, let's say, like a long break, a long time off, your body is highly resensitive to muscle building stimulus just because of how novel it is. So this is going to allow for you to simultaneously gain muscle and lose fat. Second, again, you're coming off from time away. If you've taken, let's say, months or potentially even years off from training, you can regain lost muscle while burning fat due to muscle memory. Third condition, you're overweight or obese. So very high level of body fat does provide ample stored energy. So this will allow you to lose fat while supporting muscle gain in a calorie controlled state. Fourth, you're enhanced. Or fifth, you're transitioning to a more structured program. If you've previously never really followed a training program or a diet plan, you've never tracked your food or followed a meal plan, you were inconsistent or extremely suboptimal, simply optimizing these factors can definitely drive a very robust stimulus for muscle growth and fat loss at the same time. Now, for recomping to work, nutrition first must be precisely controlled because eating too much will prevent fat loss while eating too little will limit muscle gain. So we kind of have to walk the line and find the balance. The goal is to eat at or just slightly below maintenance calories with a good macronutrient distribution being protein, 1.2 grams per pound of body weight, carbohydrates being at least 30 to 50% of your total calories, and fats around 20 to 30% of your total calories, or 0.3 to 0.4 grams per pound of body weight. And beyond just hitting your macros, optimizing your peri-workout nutrition is one of the most effective ways to improve your muscle growth outcomes, improve your training performance, and recovery, all important for making a successful recomp a reality. So when structuring peri-workout nutrition for a recomp, there are four main objectives. So we want to ensure we have amino acid availability to support muscle protein synthesis and prevent muscle protein breakdown. We want glucose availability to fuel our performance and our nervous system as well. And then we want to optimize our hydration to be able to sustain our training intensity throughout the session and achieve all those, so those three things, with minimal to zero digestive distress, because there's nothing worse than being bloated during your training or having a bunch of gas, and then you're messing up other people's workouts. So you got to be considerate here. So starting with the pre-workout nutrition, the goal is to provide your body with a combination of easily digestible protein and carbohydrates about 60 to 90 minutes, potentially 120 before training. A good rule of thumb to follow is to aim for a 1-to-1 ratio of protein to carbs. Though if you're consuming a large number of carbohydrates, you may want to keep protein intake at around 30 to 40 grams, while increasing carbs up to 100 to 150 grams. Because when you consume fast adjusting carbohydrates before your training, your body will prioritize using those, the glucose from that, before tapping into your muscle glycogen. So a good way to also emphasize this is an intra workout drink, which should include 20 to 50 grams of a quick digesting carb powder. We want 5 to 15 grams of essential amino acids, so EAAs, to support protein synthesis, keep it nice and elevated throughout the day. And you could throw in 5 to 10 grams of glutamine to enhance electrolyte absorption, as well as an added bonus of just supporting your gut health. Then, post-workout nutrition is critical for replenishing muscle glycogen, facilitating the recovery process immediately, and taking full advantage of the post-training anabolic window, which is not a myth. For protein, it is, but after resistance training, the body has an increased ability to shuttle carbohydrates directly into muscle cells without requiring insulin, thanks to muscle contractions activating GLUT4 transporters. So during this 2 to 3 hour window, glycogen synthase activity is elevated, meaning your body is primed to synthesize glycogen more efficiently. And this is why, in my opinion, your post-workout meal should be the highest carbohydrate meal of the day. Okay, so now, why are beginners often able to recomp extremely successfully? Well, they're in a prime position for a body recomp phase because their bodies are highly responsive to new training stimulus and improving their nutrition, and if you go a step further, their sleep and habits, etc. So unlike more advanced lifters who require more, let's say, precise macro manipulations and a structured bulking or cutting phase to see measurable changes, the changes you're likely after if you want to see noticeable differences in your physique year after year, beginners can often build muscle and lose fat simultaneously just by training consistently and improving their nutrition along with lifestyle habits. And this is largely due to their low baseline of muscular development, so enhanced muscle protein synthesis response, and increased insulin sensitivity when first starting structured resistance training. When someone is brand new to resistance training, their body undergoes significant neuromuscular adaptations. The nervous system becomes more efficient at recruiting muscle fibers, motor unit synchronization improves, and strength gains occur at a pretty fast rate. So also, because beginners have little to no training history, their ability to stimulate muscle growth is so high, the so-called newbie gains, where the rate at which they can build muscle far exceeds what is possible for an intermediate or like a more advanced lifter, someone who's been training for, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4 years on. Another important factor is that untrained individuals tend to, not always, but most of the time, they usually have higher body fat levels. Sometimes, you're starting off super skinny, but most of the time, I would say they have higher stored body fat, which serves as energy, which allows them to be in a slight calorie deficit while still having enough stored energy to fuel the muscle building processes. So there are actually studies that show that individuals with higher body fat levels can utilize stored triglycerides as an energy source, sparing muscle tissue and then thus allowing them to recomp. And then on top of that, their results will be significantly better if they take the time to establish the right habits before focusing on specific muscle building or fat loss phases. This is where the priming phase comes into play, which is something I run with, I would say, 90% of every new client that isn't already advanced. And the goal of this phase is to set up the body for maximum adaptability by improving their health, their training, and their nutrition. So we're going to be spending time fixing sleep, stress, optimizing digestion, learning how to actually train effectively, all while they eat at maintenance. And they end up seeing pretty dramatic changes and recomp quite well. So then by the time that rate of progress slows, and it's now time to enter a specific phase with one goal, either fat loss or muscle growth, depending on their goals and their physique, they're in a far better position to adapt and then make a significant amount of progress because everything's already on point and their body's in such a responsive state. So when does one hit a point where recomping is no longer an effective strategy? Well, if you're not a beginner on PEDs, overweight, or returning from a training hiatus, then In my opinion, it is not a good move to try and recomp, because if your goal is to maximize progress, you'd make far, far more progress focusing on one phase at a time, and then you'll get to that end result so much quicker if you do so compared to just trying to straddle both at the same time. And you'll quite easily know it's time to start focusing on one goal at a time. If you're no longer progressing in the gym, that's one of the easiest ways to tell. If you're seeing a lack of visual progress, or if you have persistent low energy, poor recovery, because constantly trying to stay like a permanent recomp phase, eating slightly below maintenance, is not going to provide enough fuel for your training intensity as you get more advanced and then as you want to build more muscle. And that's just going to lead to accumulation of fatigue, poor sleep, and a decline of gym performance, which is not the goal when we're trying to build muscle. And then, of course, if you've been training for 12 plus months, your rate of muscle gain likely has slowed by now. And at this point, a structured bulking or cutting phase will definitely accelerate your progress far more than continuing and trying to recomp. So if your goal is to maximize muscle growth, eating in a caloric surplus, which definitely does not need to be a big surplus at all. I see it time and time again. The surplus sizes are way too big. In fact, it absolutely should not be big. I'm talking a 5 to 10% surplus, which is very small, and that is all you need to maximize muscle growth and minimize any fat gain. Then if your goal is fat loss, pretty simple, caloric deficit. Done a few podcasts, did one on Monday 2 days ago, how to set things up, how to get shredded for the first time if that's your goal, because fat loss is a little more nuanced. So to sum things up, you can definitely build muscle and lose fat simultaneously, but you got to be some specific situations. If you're a beginner, if you're overweight, again, returning from a long time off training. But in my opinion, for most trained individuals, recomping is not the most effective approach for maximizing your progress long term. Now, if you don't care about optimal progress, you could 100% recomp for quite a while and still make decent progress. But if you want to make the most progress possible, wouldn't recommend. Once you've passed the beginner phase, you'll definitely see far better results by dedicating time to distinct bulking and cutting phases, allowing you to optimize muscle gain in a surplus, and then allowing you to get in and get out of a fat loss phase, strip away fat far more efficiently in a deficit rather than spinning your wheels trying to do both at once. So that is a wrap on today's quick episode. Hopefully it's cleared up some confusion. If you want free 30 days of transformation advice, if you want your nutrition set up for you, 2 free training plans, and then a quick little action step, little tip that's going to help you level up your physique, your health, your performance, your energy, overall quality of life, and achieve your dream physique and feel good alongside, click the first link in the description. It'll sort you out completely for free. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.